Welcome to another segment of CPO Arena. I am your host and moderator, Jon Hansen, and this is going to be a very interesting show. I'll get into the format momentarily, but what I'd like to do, as I always like to do, is introduce our esteemed panel, starting with Hervé Legendre. Hervé, if you could just give a brief 30-second, I mean, we do this all the time. You could probably do a recording of this, right? Or say in your sleep, but a little bit of background on yourself, Hervé.
I'm Hervé. I'm professor at EIPM and the author of Fifth Generation Purchasing When Pace Meet Power.
Excellent. All right, Hervé. If you could turn off your camera. Kanda Rozier, welcome once again. How are you?
I'm great, John, and always excited for another episode. I'm Kanda Rozier, a former Chief Procurement Officer at multiple global companies, and now doing consulting on sourcing and procurement transformation.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to look forward, as always, to your take on what we're seeing today. Remind you to turn off your camera and move next to Joseph Yakura. Joe, how are you?
Good. I'm looking forward to this presentation also. My name is Joe Yakura. I'm the former Senior Vice President and Chief Procurement Officer for American Express, Bank of America, Intercontinental Hotel Group, and Fannie Mae. Recently, I founded the International Association for Data Quality, Governance, and Analytics. And I'm also visiting graduate faculty member at the University of Arkansas in the School of Information Sciences. So I'm looking forward to today's presentation.
Absolutely. And you know what? Data analytics and good quality data has been a long challenge in our industry. We are making progress, though, aren't we?
We are. Yes, we are.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. And last but not least, and I always save you for the last. I guess the last is best. No, I don't know. Anyway, Michael Cadieux, welcome once again.
Hey, John, I got to tell you, following Joe and the rest of the group, I feel just like some guy who used to be a CPO who started an online community. Mine is so anticlimactic, but I just listening to everybody else's credentials, and I'm like, wow, I am just shocked to be on this panel. Thank you for being here. Mike Cadieux, founder of Procurement Foundry and former Chief Procurement Officer myself. So that's it.
Well, I have to tell you, if we're founding what obviously is becoming one of the fastest and most influential communities in the procurement world, it's no easy task. So you're no slouch, that's for sure.
Thanks.
All right. If I could remind you to turn off your camera, that would be great. Now, before we turn to our guest presenter, Chainyard, I want to just go over a brief outline of what the show involves. In the first couple of minutes, first 5 minutes, the provider will share with you a little bit of background information on who they are, their organization. Then there will be a demonstration or a highlight or a feature that they will present to the panel that you, of course, will see as well. After this, in another 10-minute block, we will have a Q&A in which the panelists will be able to ask the providers questions about their solution and have a dialogue relative to that. And then the closing stretch of the segment, it will be what we call beefs and bouquets. And it's not, the beefs aren't as onerous as one would think. What we look for in this is to get the feedback from our guest or our expert panel of CPOs on what they've seen, what they like about what they've seen, what may present challenges. And the good thing for you as an audience tuning in is it'll give you a chance to see the assessment through the eyes of a procurement by procurement type of take on that. It'll also provide or allow the provider to gain some additional insight and meaningful critiquing if warranted relative to this. So this is the format. Now, without further delay, let me turn it over to our providers. I believe we're going to start with you first, Gary, and then go to Michelle, correct?
That's right, John.
All right, take it away.
Okay, thanks so much. And it's great meeting everyone and being part of the arena here today. I'm Gary Stohr of Chainyard, and I'm General Manager of Trust Your Supplier. We're going to talk a lot about Trust Your Supplier today, so I'm very excited to be able to share our journey with you and our solution. Trust Your Supplier is a blockchain solution designed to transform supplier information management. Now, the critical word that we're going to talk about a lot today is trust, right? And we know that in supplier relationships, trust is critical. It's more critical today than it's ever been. They say that trust is built in drops and lost in buckets, and we believe that. And we built a piece of technology that we believe is going to help supplier relationships manage that trust. Our objective is to provide a platform where that trust can be built through data and technology among buyers and their partners. So if we look at Trust Your Supplier, it's really if you think about today's world of supplier information management, it's about speed, it's about risk mitigation. These are tremendously important in partnerships, right? And it's so critical in growth, business growth, and success. We talk to CPOs and their teams all the time about discovery, qualification, and reducing redundancy. And certainly today, in today's world, speed is currency, right? And it's going to have a huge impact on how businesses operate today. And I'm sure that some of you here on the panel realize that there's still a lot of what I'll call legacy or manual exercises here. So we're talking about incredibly repetitive and work that's non-value add. And so Trust Your Supplier's intent is to bring technology through blockchain to solve some of those issues. So it addresses pain points by a strategic collaboration between the buyer and their partner. So if we think about today, the relationships are typically point to point. What Trust Your Supplier builds is a relationship over the blockchain platform that allows suppliers to create a profile, and Michelle's going to show you this in the demo in just a few minutes. They create a profile much like you and I would create a profile in LinkedIn, and that profile then can be propagated through the blockchain out to their buyer constituency and potential new buyers. So there's business opportunities there for suppliers, which is a value proposition for them, and it allows buyers, so procurement organizations, to look at that information in real time, quickly, and make decisions about onboarding. This reduces cycle time and generates massive savings and reduction of risk because the information is accurate, it's current, and it eliminates all the swivel seeding that we do amongst various platforms and various data sources, right? So there's a compelling need for suppliers for a technology like this, and certainly there's a compelling need from a buyer perspective with regards to all of the capability that we deliver from our Trust Your Supplier platform. And when we think about a network, right, the network is always made up of constituencies, and our constituencies obviously are buyers, they're suppliers, but we've added on the Trust Your Supplier network a complement of third parties that augment the relationship. So we're talking about authoritative third-party sources. These could be renowned firms like Dun & Bradstreet, Rapid Ratings, EcoVadis, and others that offer services directly on the network that provide ratings, scores, evaluations, and other commentary that are aggregated into that single seamless view that allow you to look at the data provided by the supplier, the authoritative narratives provided by these gold standard organizations, and make decisions around qualifications, onboarding, and life cycle management. And over and above that marketplace of services that we provide from these authoritative sources, we also provide microservices that allow interconnections into back office solutions like Ariba, like Coupa, and like your various ERP platforms, SAP, Oracle, so that the information that you consume and Trust Your Supplier, and that information can then be passed downstream and backflushed and propagated throughout your business enterprise. So you can conduct your source to pay process, your sales and distribution process, and all of the other processes that require supplier information. So, and finally, of course, it's all built on blockchain. I've mentioned blockchain many times, right? So obviously blockchain today is the state of the art. It's enterprise grade trust. We call it enterprise grade trust. It's built on IBM Hyperledger Fabric. And so by applying a technology like blockchain to supplier information management. We can consume information from suppliers. We can consume information from those third parties. We can put it all on our blockchain platform. We've developed a SaaS application that allows access to that platform, and all of that information is trusted. There's integrity in that information, and it's information that can be easily consumed by buyers and suppliers alike to make decisions and solidify the trust in their relationships. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over, and enough about PowerPoint slides. We're going to actually look at the application. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Armstrong, and she's going to give you a test drive.
So hi and welcome everybody. What I'm actually going to do is look at the 4 key words that Gary mentioned to us previously, which are standardization, efficiency, compliance, and overall trust, because that's what it's all about. What I've done is I've created a very small video last night just to give you an idea of those 4 different attributes and how Trust Your Supplier can support not only our buyer community, but also our supplier community. So I'll just take you through this video.
Michelle, we're not able to hear the video.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gary. I'm actually presenting it. Can you hear the video, Gary? No?
No.
Okay, let me do it on your side. I do apologize. I did send a video over as well, but I'll do it directly on the screen. Can you see the screen?
We can see the screen.
Brilliant. I'll just do it directly on the screen then. So I do apologize. So what I'll do is I'll just present. I did send a video over yesterday. I hope all of you have received that in advance of the session. So what we'll do is we'll just look at briefly on the actual application, what's available and how we actually look at each of those 4 attributes. So the most important thing about the entire platform is the opportunity to discover suppliers that are already pre-vetted by other buyers on the network. So what we can do is go into discoverable suppliers. We can search discovered suppliers by their localization, their industry standard codes, and most importantly, through their diversity relationship. And we can actually manage that certificate policy as well. By doing this, we have suppliers that are already vetted by other buyers who've invited them to the network previously. This ensures, if I go to Accenture here, that Accenture no longer have to repeat and complete all of the additional information about their profile. It's done once. They own the information and they permission any other buyers to have access to that. This, of course, provides an increased efficiency, both for the buyer and supplier for their onboarding process. One of the additional benefits of this, however, is that even when we have minimal information available to us, we can use some of our business partner relationships to validate supplier information. In this case, we have one of our business partners that can validate if this is a true company or a shell company. They can also validate banking information, watch lists, and PEP lists, as well as other third parties that can provide financial health score ratings. And they can do this well in advance of you ever inviting that supplier to join you and your buyer network. Once you have made the decision to actually onboard a particular supplier, you then can send them out compliance questionnaires. And this is where our standardization takes place. In a standardization world, what we wanted to do was to provide our buyers and suppliers with questionnaires that were standardized for their localization, such as here and India, for anything that was specific to a legal requirement, such as diversity, and also any specific requirements particular to an industry. What this means is that 2 buyers could send the same questionnaire to 1 supplier, but the supplier only has to complete it once. We also work with compliance officers and legal communities to ensure that these questionnaires are updated and maintained to legal standards. If I go here to this GDPR one, GDPR have recently updated their rules and regulations going live sometime in the month of August, and we've already updated the questionnaire working with the legal communities within the European market. We do, however, realise that by standardising, we don't want to in any way impact the due diligence and compliance internal to that organisation. So what we have done is we have built configured approvals. This allows that particular buyer to not only send out standardised questionnaires, but then to actually look at the responses of those questionnaires and perform some due diligence. An example. This company operations questionnaire has been sent to 4 buyers that I can see on this particular environment. However, if we go and edit it, the buyer has got the same response 4 times. But here you can see they've actually added a due diligence workflow element. In which countries do you operate? If the supplier responds in either Iran or Sudan, straight away an information goes to the trust and compliance team for that buyer to review, validate, and determine whether or not they want this particular supplier to be onboarded. This is real efficiency from a compliance perspective. The procurement team do not need to worry, are they onboarding suppliers unnecessarily? Their compliance team have this onboarded and ready for them so that they can ensure that the supplier is the correct one they want to onboard. So how does that look from a connected supplier perspective? So connected suppliers are suppliers that have now accepted your invite, are willing to provide you with all of their information, which aligns with all of the regulatory requirements around data privacy, and have completed any necessary questionnaires that you've wished them to align to. You can quite easily search by your suppliers in any of these key areas, and we're just going to look directly here at Accenture in India. One of the first questions that we ask them is, which localization area are you in? And upon receiving that information, we will determine what legal requirements they need to commit to. So this one in India, and I just want to show you Google for United States. Google is United States, so there's some additional requirements that we need to complete. We will need their W-9 form, W-8 if they're selling any information or services outside of the United States, and also their employer identification number. However, if this was India, we would automatically ask them for their company registration, their CTIN number, and their PAN number, and we would again ask them for notification or documentation to prove that identity. If we go further down, we also have built relationships with organizations such as GLEAF, which is the Global Legal Entity Identifier, which can inform us exactly who owns or what relationships Google has to any other companies worldwide. So you can see here, we can see that Alphabet is the ultimate partner of Google. This is a great opportunity for our buyers to have supplier hierarchy validated directly on the application. It also allows for suppliers to add in all of their hierarchy to ensure that they're getting full marketing opportunities within the environment. All questionnaires are available that they have actually been asked to complete. And as I said before, if they've already completed them, in this case, they've already completed all of these questionnaires for another buyer, and they no longer have to complete them. And only these 3 additional questionnaires have been sent to them to complete for this respective buyer. One additional advantage is the document repository. Wonderful opportunity for both our suppliers and buyers. Any documents that they have been asked to complete, whether for diversity or whether for validation for cybersecurity or GDPR, are available in this one central repository. And we have some workflow methodology to look at the expiration date of them and in turn remind the supplier to update, maintain and share with all of their buyers on the network. They no longer have that swivel seat effect of having to remember which certifications go to which buyer, which need to be updated when, and when are they expired. We provide all of that in the one solution. And finally, let me look at installed applications. So this is where we have built business partner relationships with compliance companies to support our buyers to look at due diligence and compliance. Here we have a wide spectrum, a wide spectrum of organizations. If I just go back down. A wide spectrum of organizations that can look at things such as financial health ratings, diversity, ESG, which is environmental sustainability and governance, sanctions, etc., all in one platform. Let me just go to the marketplace and show it to you from there. Here you can see each of the individual categories that we currently look at, and I can show you here all of the apps that are available. Most of these particular business partner relationships also offer continuous monitoring. So not only are we providing you with the validation on the supplier pre-onboarding, but even during the entire life cycle of your relationship. If any of the ratings go down from the likes of Dun & Bradstreet or Rapid Ratings, we will send the buyer notification for them to reevaluate that supplier. This allows the buyers to have trust in the information that's available on the network. They have all of the compliance information available, and they can create intuitive smart attributes against each of these ratings that the business partners provide. It provides efficiency and standardization of the information available to them. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much. Let's go to our Q&A session right now. And again, it was a very insightful presentation. I'm very interested in seeing what the panel has to say. And I'll start with you, Michael. Questions for Michelle regarding what you've seen in the demo.
Wow, pretty impressive. I've been doing a lot in risk management evaluation and trust your supplier because we've got a conference coming up in 4 weeks around risk management and supplier risk management. Great presentation, really quickly, both with you, Gary, and also you with Michelle. I'm interested in, and I apologize for my ignorance, I haven't heard of Trust Your Supplier yet, although I'm happy to be enlightened by it. Can you tell me a little bit about the scope and the size, like how many companies are currently in the how many evaluations you have? And also my other question is, you said you're running this on blockchain versus historical relational database architecture. How does the blockchain technology handle updates to data?
Sure, Mike. Maybe I'll take that one. So in terms of just a little bit of background around the network. The network's about 2 years old.
Okay.
It was established in a partnership with IBM. So IBM is client zero, if you want to think about that. And so our organization, Chainyard and IBM, came together to create Trust Your Supplier. IBM came on 2 years ago. They've invited essentially the entirety of their supplier base. Currently, we have over 10,000 suppliers in the network. And we have the likes of, again, IBM, Lenovo, Vodafone, Nokia. We have a total of 11 buyers currently inviting, and we have another 9 buyers that are in some stage of readying to come on the network. So I think it's fair to say it's an emerging platform, but we're seeing tremendous growth with with these enterprise organizations like IBM, bringing their supplier bases to bear to help grow and populate the participation across the network. With regard to your question.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So, and just back to your question about blockchain. So, blockchain, if you think about blockchain, it's only really been around about 15 years. And from an enterprise perspective, it's still relatively new. The technology is still maturing. We've taken an approach in our architecture that that stores the bulk of the information that you see here on the blockchain itself. So all of the transaction, all of the database level transactions that are occurring to store information are happening on the blockchain. Now, there's a caveat there with natural person information because of things like data rights that require the right to forget. that information is actually stored in a more conventional relational environment that allows information to be deleted. But the immutable component of blockchain, it prohibits us from storing natural person information and still be compliant with data rights. But all of the other data that you see here is resident on that blockchain platform.
Yeah, that was my question. I was wondering how you were grappling with the right to forget versus immutable data, because there's a lot of question about that with blockchain, right? Which is, how do I deal with GDRP on something that's immutable?
Yeah, so, it's very paradoxical, right? Because blockchain's immutable, but yet you need the right to forget to comply with data rights for GDPR and other. There's data rights obviously popping up all over the planet now, and so this is an architectural conundrum that I think all blockchain providers are trying to understand how to effectively comply with.
Congratulations! It looks like you may have solved it. So
we hope so.
I look forward to continuing to monitor you, and hopefully I'm gonna jump off, but hopefully one of my peers will ask how you sell this thing. I'm interested in how you actually sell it and go to market with it.
Sure. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Let's lead into then Kanda. Any questions for? Well, I'm sure you probably have questions. Maybe even how do you sell it? But I'll turn it over to you, Kanda.
Okay, thanks, John, and Michelle and Gary. Thanks. That's a really enlightening presentation. As I can tell you, as a former CPO, the whole topic of supplier risk management from onboarding to life cycle to throughout the life cycle of the supplier is a huge and I think often overlooked and underestimated area. So I am really impressed with what I've seen. I'll tee up the question that Mike left dangling, but I did have another, I guess, more product-oriented question. So when Michelle, you showed the products in the marketplace, and it looked like on the screen there were probably more than than you had scrolled down to. Perhaps it was hard to tell. Can a customer add, if they have a system that they're using, whatever it might be, for supplier vetting and management, can they add that fairly easily via some sort of a general API to the product?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's, if I answer two parts to that, if that's okay. So the first one is we're always open for new categories and new third business partner applications. What's really exciting about Trust Your Supplier is the ecosystem. People are asking us to join, and that's great because they're telling us, you now need insurance for RFQs or RFPs. I'm really excited. I've heard about what you're doing. Let me join, and that can be done roughly in about 6 weeks' time. We also have APIs already available that can be consumed, and it provides all of the data on the profile, the questionnaires, and the responses to that questionnaires. And then we also have business intelligence directly on the application over here under reports, where you can also then extract that information. So yes, you can add information directly onto it. Also, you can consume the information if that would be a lot easier for you to take that into another application, such as a downstream ERP or procurement solution. And then we also have the opportunity to utilize strategic and operational reports under BI.
Okay, thanks. No, great answer, and I appreciate that. I will go ahead and tee up then Mike's question, because I must say until we got the information about you guys coming on the arena, I certainly was not aware of either Trust Your Supplier or Chainyard. So how are you going to market, and what's the strategy you're taking, because it does seem you guys have a really unique and compelling solution for the market.
Yeah, so Kanda, I mentioned earlier, this Trust Your Supplier was conceived in a partnership between IBM and Chainyard, and so that partnership was really about a technology company like Chainyard and bringing their blockchain expertise to bear to build the technology base, build the blockchain, build the accompanying SaaS platform. And IBM's role there is to convene the ecosystem. So bring some of these enterprise organizations that I mentioned earlier to the network. And then those organizations then bring their suppliers to the network and then help us with the likes that you can see here, Dun & Bradstreet, and helping organizations like Dun & Bradstreet join our network as well, right? So leveraging IBM's marketing muscle and their presence in the marketplace, along with our expertise and technology, that's the go-to-market plan. Now, certainly, as we've matured and evolved, we're becoming, more sensitive to some of the changes in how procurement is evolving. Things like ESG, carbon footprint, sustainability, climate, diversity, all becoming very becoming focus points in procurement. And so as these things start to develop, not to mention health and safety as we come out of the pandemic, then these are areas that we're starting to focus on from kind of a sales and marketing perspective, because this allows us to take some of the things like Maplecroft and EcoVadis that specialize in providing sustainability and ESG content to the market. So we, through those vendors and through those partners, we're also trying to establish a market path as well. Like any network, a network is all about participation. And so we're trying to get to at that level of participation and an inflection point where there's just extreme value in the network just by being a participant, because there's other buyers and there are other suppliers. So we're still on that journey. I don't know that we've reached that inflection point yet, but we're well on our way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kanda. Very good questions, and I'm taking copious notes mentally and both on paper here. There's a lot of ground to cover. Let's now go to Hervé Legendre. Hervé, what questions do you have for either Gary or Michelle?
I'm very well known for having very complicated questions. So my question will be, how much and who pays?
It is quite complicated. So the how much, so the model is the supplier pays, and the supplier pays a subscription fee for participation on the network. And that subscription fee is $99. And for that, they have essentially an infinite use of the network. They can connect to as many buyers as they like. They can be discovered by as many buyers as they can be discovered by. They have all of their information is shared across the network based on at their discretion. Today, the monetization model is centered on supplier subscriptions. Now, buyers do pay a licensing fee when they join. It's a relatively small fee, but and it's dependent on their size, things like revenue and how they're going to use the tool, and some of the services that the buyer might use, APIs as an example, and certain other features. But predominantly, the monetization model exists in supplier subscription.
And that's per week, per month, per year?
That's monthly.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's basically $1,200 US a year for the supplier to participate. Now we do give it, there's one caveat there. The first time a supplier connects, we describe a relationship forming between a buyer and a supplier on the network as a connection. The first connection is free. So if you're a supplier and you're only doing business with IBM and you connect to IBM, you get that connection for free. But then when you have subsequent connections, let's say you've connected to IBM and then tomorrow you connect to Lenovo, well, then you begin your subscription fee.
Do I have time for another question, John?
You sure do.
Okay. Let's look into the future now. That's the real complicated one. Looking into the future, do you see opportunities to, somehow use it in a reverse way, like all the players across one industry putting some data, they get rewarded, a token strategy to get rewarded for sharing data across a full value chain. Is that part of your roadmap? Any kind of views on going in such directions?
Yeah,
Can I
once
answer the first part? Could I answer that?
yeah,
The first
go
part of that,
ahead.
Guy? Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm going to answer it in two steps. I'll leave the token part of it to Gary, but I'll talk about the consortium spectrum of it. So we do have a very strong consortium in the likes of the telecommunications industry, where they have actually come together. They have looked at their internal processes between themselves and went, how can we standardize our onboarding and our internal compliance processes that will help us from a due diligence perspective, but also help our connected suppliers, because most of them have about 80% of connected supplier invites. So that's been a really great benefit, not only to us from a 3x perspective on getting that standardization in place, but it's actually been a really compelling set of information and consortium that they have actually built as well. So I think that's a really good opportunity. How we take that forward, Gary, I'll hand that part of the question to you.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's part of it's the power of blockchain and what blockchain affords you. Because at some point, when participation levels reach that inflection point I mentioned, then we can start to create an economy on this network, and that economy can consist of things in addition to this monetization. It really can consist of things like what other organizations have onboarded the supplier, what organizations have consumed the supplier's goods or services, how has the behavior of the supplier changed over time, things like reviews, performance ratings, all of these elements that today we really don't have any access to, really don't exist in the industry other than hearsay. We can institutionalize on the blockchain network, and it's really the key to that is just really getting us to a participation level where all of that then can become a reality. And so certainly that's on our roadmap, and it just needs to be triggered by by time, what's the old saying? It's time and effort, right? So we're driving to implement those from a technology perspective, so that when we get to those volume levels in the network, we can immediately integrate that into our architecture and into our solution back out to the marketplace.
Thank you.
Thank you. And simple questions, yet they have great depths of answer there. Thank you, Hervé. And let's finally go to Joe Yakura. Joe, questions for our panel.
First, I'm very impressed with your product. It seems extremely well thought out and definitely in high need in the supplier community. So I give you accolades for all the efforts and what you've achieved so far. My panelists, the other panelists have always asked good questions. So the last person is somewhat limited as to what they can address given the time frame we have. But one of my questions is blockchain gives you that sense of authority and sense of confidence, etc. But given your suppliers submit their own input, what, if anything, do you have in regards to a data quality audit process, given you're collecting all these different data elements from thousands of suppliers and they're self-submitted? What do you have in place that validates that data, or some sampling methodology or whatever you have in place to assure the integrity of the data on your system?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to that. So we look at Trust Your Supplier as a gated community. So the only way that a supplier can enter Trust Your Supplier is to be invited by one of the enterprises I mentioned. So some buyer on the network that's already been vetted to be on the network. So the likes of the IBMs and Lenovo's, they're inviting. So by the fact that they're inviting these suppliers, we have a first pass that says this supplier is legitimate. This is not a fraudster. This is not an actor. They didn't just, they didn't just come on and create a profile browsing the internet, right? They were invited. So they got through the gate via an invitation by one of our providers. And then I think the second element, well, there's actually three elements to it. The second element is those organizations are constantly monitoring their relationships with these suppliers to ensure that they are solid and trusted members of their organization and trusted partners. And then those authoritative sources that we shared with you, the EcoVadis's, the Dun & Bradstreets, the Rapid Ratings, they are constantly monitoring these organizations. And we have a capability, we didn't have a lot of time in the demo to share it with you, but we have a parts of our application that use AI tools and continuous monitoring logic that will constantly notify a buyer organization of changes with a supplier. So for example, if a supplier CFO or CEO has changed and our AI tools pick that up in the media, then that will be reported. And so you can look at that as a buyer and say, oh, that CEO, maybe that CEO was coming off some, from an organization that was suspect. You may need to want to take action on that. Maybe they're now doing business in an embargoed country. That's important for you to know. Okay, so we communicate that with our monitoring capability. So using those kind of techniques and techniques that we'll implement in the future that we talked about, we feel like we can maintain that ring of trust around those suppliers.
Great, thank you. I also just want to comment on a positive. I really like the ability to notify your users of changes. I mean, there's so many systems out there that collect the data and store it, but unless somebody queries the data, they don't have the benefit of the knowledge. So I like the capability. I think that's great. Starting to be proactive and push that new state out and notifying people as opposed to letting them discover that on their own. So well thought out product.
Yeah, and Joseph, one added point to that. That's a great statement. We also, on the supplier side, have their own ecosystem. So the likes of the Dun & Bradstreet, EcoVadis, and Rapid Rating, what a buyer sees is a score for that supplier. The supplier also sees it. So it's giving them that opportunity to continuously monitor themselves and to ensure that they're being verified and validated correctly as well. So we just felt that was an added trust feature to give to the suppliers as well.
Yeah, very good product.
Well, now you see, we've sort of already got a bouquet from you, Joe. Why don't we start now going back the other way? Joe, any beef? Because we've certainly got, certainly the bouquet as to what you're talking about. Anything in terms of critiquing?
I really don't have anything on a critical aspect of it. I like the price point. I think it's very affordable. I think it's an all-inclusive, from the data and the types of data you're collecting, I think is great. I think the tool is and will be in high demand. As several other panelists mentioned, I was not aware of your firm, so I'm not sure if, given your focus with IBM and other large companies, I'm not sure though if your marketing has been primarily to the EU or other parts of the world, but I'm sure once your product becomes more well-known in the US, I think it's going to be a rather significant success, I hope. So congratulations.
All right, Joseph, thank you so much. If you could turn off your camera, and then I would invite Hervé to provide his beefs and bouquet, that would be terrific.
Great. Yeah, no, I think, for me, seeing in such a concrete way, a sort of a data infrastructure that's being shared across industries and across multiple companies, that's absolutely promising, and this is really something that we need and that will be very useful into the future. There's tremendous opportunities when you've reached this tipping point to add additional value on that platform by combining further information to enhance the overall benefits for everyone. The one point is you have there is a fee for the supplier. So the question mark is, will they be willing to play? For a big company, this is not much. For others, this can be, something significant. And we know that, platforms depends on the size of networks, and you need to be able to rapidly scale up. And, that will be interesting to monitor the speed in terms of the evolution of the overall network. And would really encourage you to put on somewhere very visible, the speed of evolution of companies on the platform on both sides. So to really understand to what extent this is picking up and you've got the network effect kicking in rapidly or not.
All right, Hervé. Yeah, that's perfect. If I could have you turn off your camera, and I'll bring back Kanda Rosier. Kanda, the Beefs and Bouquet.
Okay, thanks. So, I'm as was pointed out earlier by Joseph, when you go last, a lot of what you were going to say has already been said by the other by my other esteemed panelists. But look, I think this is a terrific product. I am really impressed with what you have done to really get your arms around supplier risk, to put it in a very aggregate sort of way, pulling from so many very foundational sources and other systems. I think you've hit on an area that is absolutely underserved by solutions right now. It's getting more and more important, as I'm sure you guys and your marketing work has shown. You really can hardly go on LinkedIn or on any of the industry forums without seeing supplier risk as a key topic. So I think that you have a great product. I'm very impressed with it, and I think your timing, the timing is perfect for you to really maximize what you can do with the product. I won't say that these next comments are beefs. I think they're observations is all. I think that there might be a little confusion by some potential customers or in the marketplace as to whether you're offering a supplier risk tool as the primary thing, which happens to be underscored by blockchain, or if it's a blockchain solution for procurement, and which would imply maybe more on the transactional purchase side, tracking provenance and that sort of thing. So I think that the more you can emphasize the focus on supplier risk being underpinned by blockchain as opposed to being blockchain, I think will probably resonate more clearly with some potential clients. I think the other observation would be clearly your tie and your legacy with IBM is fabulous. It's what's given you the entree and the springboard. But I think that as you continue to grow, being able to build similar type of relationships and at least create bridges, if you will, to things like the Ariba network and others, I think is going to be important to give you more diversity in terms of clients and companies that would just readily say, wow, this, I have no questions, this is the solution I want. But all in all, I am tremendously impressed with what we've seen today. So thanks.
Thank you, Kanda. And if I could remind you to turn off your camera, and Michael to turn on yours and share your beefs and bouquets.
Hi guys. Sorry, I'm a little bit slow there. Listen, just like everybody else said, I think you got something really special here. Right place, right time, right market, right? I understand that it's built under Chainyard, and Chainyard, I think that's probably part of the confusion here, is that Chainyard is, if I'm reading correctly, and I'm reading and absorbing at the same time, Chainyard is a little bit of a solutions architecture design development house, and you've built a product. You've built a solution called Trust Your Supplier, and I love it, and it's coming to market with your partnership with IBM. It's just a matter of getting you to critical mass. 10,000 suppliers is just the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, when you get to 100,000 suppliers, when you get to 300,000 suppliers, you're going to be really rocking and rolling. I think, and I don't think it's a beef. I'm interested in, we don't have a lot of time to go into it. I think it's really heavy on supply side. I know you've got a product called Trust Your Product, which I'm guessing is part of the supply chain risk optimization side as well. And one of the things I'm kind of interested in, and I would love to see more of, is trust your supplier from a procurement perspective. But there's also a lot of organizations, as I dig deeper into risk, which is the channel side of sales associated with trusting your channel partners. So if I'm a network hardware manufacturer, not only do I have to trust the suppliers that I'm buying from for indirect and direct, but I also have to make sure that my channel partners and my partners in sales and marketing and things like that aren't using slave labor in the delivery or bribing foreign countries to buy more of my products or things like that. So there's a whole nother aspect to that I think you can dive into and expand into. I think the possibilities for you here are huge in that space. I guess my biggest beef is the fact that you're so new to our market and I just haven't heard of you yet. I think that's the biggest beef I have. So I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that I just learned about you. I'd love to learn more about what you do and how you do it so I can tell my 5,000 friends. I guess that's it. All right.
All right. Thank
That's it.
you, Mike. So in about 30, 40 seconds, I'll leave it to either you, Gary, or Michelle to just say any closing thoughts you'd like to leave with us before we sign off.
Great, John. Well, thanks so much. And we appreciate all the kind words and the feedback, and that all of your feedback just helps us get better. And so we'll certainly take that input. Again, we're an emerging organization. We have an emerging product, and we think that we have something that's really going to help procurement organizations and supplier relationship management. And it sounds like from the feedback here, we've struck the right chord, and we're extremely excited to be part of that and to drive revolutionary change in that space. So I want to thank everyone here once again. This has been a fabulous opportunity to share our story and our journey and our product with you and your audience. And if there's any, if the audience has any questions, then please feel free to reach out to myself or Michelle at Trust Your Supplier. You can reach us. You can find our contact information at trustyoursupplier.com. We'd love to hear from you. So again, thanks again, and I really enjoyed this session.
Thank you so much as well. This certainly was an insightful discussion, and I know I can speak on behalf of the panel that we are glad to have discovered your company through the CPO arena. And I just want to remind listeners that this is going to be available on demand, and shortly after its broadcast, which will be within the next week to 10 days, a synopsis of the assessment by the panel will be made available to you free for download. Until we come at you over the virtual airwaves again, are you ready to enter the arena? We hope you will be. Bye for now.